It was tempting at the time. And of course, when I said something to my husband, he said, well, I'm going down with the ship. So I said, well, I guess I'm going down with you.
That was Marianne Chi of Polly G's, and it's your boy, iDrift, and you're listening to the What's Good Dough podcast. Whether it's pizza, business, or life, my guests and I are always talking about ways we can level up. Today, we have an amazing episode with Mrs. G, and she talks about how it's been over the years building this pizzeria with her partner. We talk about the early stages of the pizzeria, how she was involved, how she wasn't involved. We talk about COVID and the crazy stories that they've had there. And we also just talk about what it's like to have a healthy relationship with your partner. So if you're thinking about building a pizzeria, you really want to tune in so that you build the pizzeria of your dreams. This is an amazing episode, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And remember to always ask, what's good, dough? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I have an amazing guest for you today, the one and only Mrs. G. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. For anyone who doesn't know Mrs. G, she goes by Marianne, but also Mrs. G. Which one do you get called by out in the nature? In the pizza world?
Well, in the pizza world, our employees call me that. It just started from the very beginning. It kind of fit with Paulie G, but I had also worked in the school system for a number of years, and the kids couldn't pronounce my last name, so they called me Mrs. G. And then when I came into the restaurant and met our first employees, they just started calling me that also. So it just kind of like stuck. And even other people that are maybe as old as I am call me that as well. So it just kind of, it's kind of turned out to be a term of endearment, I think.
Good. I didn't want to remove your identity. I know you had a first name.
You know what?
I'm
not concerned about my identity. I have my own identity. I know who I am. And it doesn't matter to me if you call me Miss, Ms. or Mrs. I'm still who I am. And Paulie and I have, we're on the same page with that. We have very, I think, unique identities. But then we also, I think, have an identity as a couple. So, and I think that's the best part of a relationship that's, thriving and ever growing, is that you're encouraging each other to be your best selves, not taking away anything from the other person.
I want to dive deep into all of what you said right there. But before we get too far into the show, I always ask this one question to start things off. There is no right or wrong answer. What's good, dough?
Well, that's a very subjective question, right?
It is.
Because there are so many different types of dough. But I personally like a dough that's light and flavorful, but not salty. To me, that's a good dough.
Talk to me about your background, because you weren't in the restaurant industry and you didn't start right when Paulie started, right?
Well, we both never worked in the restaurant business before, we opened the restaurant in 2010 when my husband was already 57. I'm a little bit younger, but not that much younger. But we had never worked in that field before. But I feel like we weren't afraid to do that because I think, we were a little bit older and that gives you wisdom. But we also had a lot of life experiences and various careers and jobs. And we had always also entertained at home. We were like sort of known for that. We were the people that always had the huge Christmas party for 50 people. We always had most of our children's events at home. We never really went out or catered food. Paulie would do all the food. I would help. We would serve. And we were just very, very comfortable with that model. So we didn't really need to learn hospitality per se because we knew hospitality. What we had to learn was everything about a business.
How did you start to learn the business?
Well, you know what? You learn by doing. As I always say, I don't, think that it's not worthwhile to have a business degree. But I have met a number of people that have business degrees, and they have told me that the way they learned business was to do business. And I think you can sit in a classroom and you can, do all those kinds of syllabi. But until you're actually applying something, that's when you learn it. And that's where the work is. I mean, I learned that early on, even in my career. I went for many like software training classes, and you'd sit in a classroom and you'd learn this application and everything. But then you'd go back to your office and you were like, I'm not even sure what I just learned.
Right.
Because it's so overwhelming. But then when you actually sat and applied that to your job, that's how you learn that application. So I always kind of looked at our business the same way. It was really learn by doing. I mean, yeah, we gathered a lot of information early on from other people, and we sort of have had a little bit of a template of where to start. But a lot of it, we just learn hands-on.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I'm at right now when it comes to pizza. I've spent all these episodes talking to people and learning from them and trying to figure out what mistakes not to make. And then I just did, yeah. And then I just did my first, paid catering event the other week, and
congratulations.
I learned a bunch of new stuff. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but I totally agree with that sentiment. It's like go out there and do it and learn from.
Well, I mean, I think book learning has its place. I'm not sure how it fits into the pizza world, but you really learn by all the experiences that you have, and also meeting everybody else in the industry who were very forthcoming with, their own experiences, to Paulie, and he was very grateful for that. And we came into it right away feeling like so many people were generous with their time and information that we would also just, in whatever way we could, pay it forward to somebody else that was starting out in whatever business it was, not even necessarily pizza.
Okay. So when you first heard, Paulie wanted to open a restaurant, what was your thoughts? What was your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, I know my husband because we've been together forever. And I knew that if he really wanted to do something, he was going to do it, probably if I approved or not. So I just felt that, I probably kicked and screamed for a little bit initially, and he never lets me forget that. But it wasn't that long. And I realized that I had to be on board with it if he was going to succeed. And, when you're in a relationship, as you probably know, there's compromise, and it's not always about you and it's not always about him. And you sort of have to do what's best for both of you. I guess I realized also when he was in his 50s that, he was really very unhappy with what he was doing with his life. He just wasn't fulfilled by it. It wasn't something that, he was happy with. Like you get into a career and a life and there's things you have to pay bills and, we had kids and everything else. And then you sort of feel stifled. But his passion really always had been food and music and being with people. And obviously, we've met you only once, I think, which is amazing. But we're very social people. I mean, we're both of the same mindset that way. I mean, we both just love people. And I don't think you could run our business the way we do, which might be a little different than some other people do, if we didn't really put the people first. Like for us, it's a business, but it's really more of a people business. And real business people just don't understand sometimes what we're saying.
Elaborate a little bit more on that so that they do understand.
Well, it works for us. We don't ascribe to all the traditional like business policies. Obviously we do everything according to city and state regulations and all that stuff. But we really try to work with people like where they're at and, move them forward. I mean, it's not like, like it's, for instance, if somebody wants to be a dishwasher, that's fine. But as I always tell the dishwashers, whatever you're doing in life, just do it the best you can because you're not going to be doing that forever. I mean, like I look back on my life, all the different experiences and jobs I had really brought me to the point that we're at now. Because whatever you're doing, there's always an experience there. And if you're smart enough, you can reflect on that and use what you've learned for your next experience. And even though my husband and I weren't academically trained, I mean, we both went to college at night, but both of us never finished. And you know what? That's okay. I mean, it all depends on what field you're in. I mean, we're not in rocket science. We're not doing brain surgery. So, I mean, those things, obviously you need the academics and the clinicals for. But I feel like so much of life, and I can say this now in hindsight because I'm a little bit older than you, is really life experience. And so I try to stress that with our employees. I mean, I'm very involved really on the employee side. I don't really get involved with developing recipes. That's not my forte. My husband's really the culinary person. I will certainly test things and give my opinion. But I don't get involved with creating that. He's really like the creator. I mean, that's his strength and I have my strengths. And so, we just try to work with each other that way. And hopefully that impacts the business in a positive way.
Let's talk a little bit more about your strengths and what you do for your employees. What are like your day-to-day roles in the restaurant? Just so I have a little bit of a better understanding.
Well, it kind of overlaps a little bit more now because, in the beginning when we opened the restaurant in 2010, I was still working a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 8 years, which was tough.
What was your job?
Well, I was actually working for the Catholic Church at the time, and I was a coordinator of events and trainings, and I did love it. I was in New Jersey. But the main thing was, Paulie was able to do this because I had the health care and the benefits and all that stuff. So he kind of quit his career, which was really always really more the main career, let's say, so that he could do this. And so, a lot of it was risky, but I think, in life, you have to look at everything. There's pros and cons to everything, and as long as you realize that, there's nothing perfect. And, we've been at this for 12 years. And believe me, there's nothing perfect because every day, there's another story. There's something broken or there's an employee issue or, whatever. But at the end of the day, if we're making pizza and people are having a good experience and we're employing people and we're paying taxes and I do a lot with charity stuff, I feel good about that because I feel like that's our mission. It's not necessarily to have everything perfect.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, I'm thinking back to 12 years ago and when you guys first started, do you think that, I don't know where Paulie was at because I didn't ask him this question, but do you think that he should have started sooner?
Actually, no, I really don't. I feel like, everything in life is timing, and it wasn't the right time before that. I mean, our kids were younger. I certainly give people credit that go into this type of industry that have young children because our youngest son was 18 at the time when we first opened. So he was already, through high school, and we had seen him. We had done all the sporting events, and, my husband was a coach and I was involved with things in school. So we had a very full life. I mean, we did all that. And it was sort of like when we opened then, of course you always worry about your kids and stuff, but they were older. And so that's kind of different. I applaud some of our people that, work in this industry that have young children because it really isn't that easy unless you do have some help and you have, maybe family around. We didn't have that. So when our kids were younger, our parents have all been gone for so many years, we were pretty much on our own, but in any event, it's not an easy industry, I think. I mean, I wouldn't discourage people from doing it if you have a passion for it, but I would say, you have to figure out the logistics of all that because there's a lot of moving parts,
The logistics are hard. I mean, as I was considering this with my wife, I really do love making food. I think I worked 40 hours the week of my catering event in addition to the 40 hours I worked for my regular day job. And I just had all of this energy. But then, what you said about having to balance that family life. We're expecting a daughter, and it's not optimal to, miss out on those key moments, but that's kind of what it calls for when you work at a restaurant.
Well, the only thing I could say to that is, as long as you have the support of whatever partner you're with, if you are with someone, because, I think my husband always knew going into this, it wasn't, I don't know that we thought it was going to be difficult. I don't know what we thought, because we had never been in the business before. I had no idea what we thought, but I think of that now. But I knew, we had enough experience at that point, in business, working in different careers, and in life experience, that I knew whatever we did, it would be okay. We went into that, and it was never that it never crossed our mind that we were going to fail. It just never crossed our mind. Now, did we think it was going to be what it is today? No, absolutely not. I mean, we still are looking at each other like, really? We're just two kids from Brooklyn. We grew up with nothing. And, his parents didn't even own a home. They never even drove, His sister, the same thing. They were just your average blue collar workers. And my parents too. Nobody gave us anything. We didn't have a trust fund. We didn't have money to go to college. It was a different time. But that's okay. I mean, you work with what you have. If you really have a passion for something, I would definitely encourage people to go for that passion. But sometimes you have to put things on hold for a while until it's like the right timing, and I think in our case, it was like the right timing. My husband was in his 50s when he started talking about it. And, I knew that, we had to do something different. I just kind of knew that, because I felt like we weren't getting where we wanted to be, in a sense, with what we were doing, And when you're your own boss, obviously it's very challenging, but you're the one that makes the rules. So, if we want to close on Thanksgiving, that's when we close. We don't ask anybody. We don't have any partners. And that was one thing that I think, when I look back on it now, that was very smart of my husband. He did not want partners, because he didn't want anybody that he had to be accountable to ask every little thing to. Yes, we had some investors, which were family and friends. And honestly, they have been amazing. They have never questioned us. They have never, they just went into it to help us out to get started. And they've been nothing but loyal and amazing. And I can't thank them enough. And believe me, they've been paid back many times over, and very early on in the business, like very early on. We had paid everybody off within 2 years.
Wow.
And that was my husband's goal. It was just like, let's get this done with. We don't want to have any debt on the business. We don't, and we don't have any debt on our businesses. But, it worked for us. Everybody has different ways of doing things. I guess we just, we're more the type that, we don't analyze everything. Like, we do a lot on instinct, and what feels right and feels good. And we just keep moving with that. Obviously, we have to run a business. We have to pay bills. We have to pay taxes. We have to take care of our employees, meet our payroll all the time. But it all works out in the end. I feel, this is just my belief, if you have the right intent. Like, we've always, I felt like, had the right intent. Now, does everybody agree with what we do or say? Probably not. But that's life. Not everybody will.
Well, and not everyone will get the same result, even if they believe, right?
Yeah, exactly. I count myself very fortunate, and I am very grateful. And I think that is part of it as well. I feel like we have a very different life philosophy than a lot of people. And I feel like we always sort of have. We're very, touchy-feely kind of people. We love being with people. And, if anybody needs help with anything, like, Paulie doesn't care. He'll sit down with anybody, if you want advice, because he felt like people did that with him in the beginning. And, we don't want $1 for anything. That's what it's all about. If everybody could just get in sort of that mindset, like we're all in this together.
Welcome to the What's Good Dough podcast, and get ready to level up. But before we continue with the show, I want to introduce you to my two show sponsors, Ooni Pizza Ovens and Cordo Olive Oil. Let's start with Ooni. They are the #1 pizza oven company in the world with the best community there is. Because of their ovens, I have made some of the most amazing pizzas. From round pies to squares, I'm able to get to temperatures of up to 900 degrees, allowing me to cook the pizzas of my dreams. If you're looking to grow your pizza business, buying an Ooni makes sense. My past guest Ryan of Sanctuary Pizza has a mobile catering company powered by Ooni. These powerful ovens are efficient, lightweight, and can be used almost anywhere. Whether you take pizza seriously like me or want to run a pizza operation like Ryan, Ooni is the choice for you. Use the link in the show notes and join the Ooni community. My second show sponsor is Cordo Olive Oil. At first, I didn't believe that olive oil mattered. It wasn't until I got educated and learned about the difference between commodity oil and Cordo's fresh squeezed olive oil that I ditched the supermarket stuff. Today, I only use Cordo olive oil when it comes to making my dough and even doing a post-bake drizzle. I have even made some amazing pesto with it. Oh my goodness. Cordo's high quality olive oil does really elevate anything it touches. My buddy Chris, who runs A Slice of New Jersey, just switched over to Cordo. Not only is he getting quality, but he ended up saving money by switching over too. If you're still unsure of the difference, pizza operators can sign up for a free olive oil tasting. Use the link in the show notes to learn more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my show sponsors and supporting this show. And I think that is more important than ever, especially with the scarcity of employees nowadays. What are some of the things that you're implementing or doing at the workplace to make people feel like they're appreciated and welcomed and benefiting from the job other than external benefits like pay and benefits?
Well, I always started from the beginning at 60. I don't really do it at the slice shop because we have a general manager there, but I go over there too. For people's birthdays, I always give them a card and something. If somebody leaves, we usually have something, no matter where they're going to send them off. And just really checking in with people, to see how they're doing. Like most of our employees, I know their stories. I know, who's taking care of their mom and who's taking care of their kids. And, whatever I could do in whatever capacity to help, I try. I mean, that's sort of my role. And I do believe that's why we've been fortunate enough to keep employees, because we care about them. We really do. I mean, it's not lip service. We really do. And I know Paulie does too. I mean, he gets more frustrated with people than I do. But I think that, I sort of come in and I'm the great equalizer, And I think that in a way, and I'm sure he'll admit it also, he's been able to do so much because he's always had me in his court. I mean, I have done a lot on the back ends of this business to keep it going. And I think that has really helped. I think when you're by yourself, and I see that with my son right now, because he's running our slice shop in Philly, it's much more challenging.
What are some of the ways that you supported? I mean, I'd love to hear some of those stories.
You mean in the business or personally?
Well, both. Give me everything you got.
Well, basically in the beginning, I mean, I was still working full time, but I was also helping out with a lot of the administrative stuff in the business. And even though we were in New Jersey, I was still coming into Brooklyn, a couple of nights a week. And sometimes I would drive after work and, in rush hour traffic, even though it's only 40 miles, it could take an hour and a half. So I did a lot of things like that. When I look back on it, I was like, wow, did we really do all that? Like sometimes I would shop at my lunch hour and bring stuff back to my building and put it in the refrigerator and then bring it here after work. I mean, I did a lot of stuff. But you know what? When it's your business, and I tell people this, you're not working for somebody else. You're working for yourself. If you don't do it or you don't attend to it, who's going to attend to it?
Right.
And like in the beginning, we didn't have a lot of money. So it wasn't like we were getting everything delivered. You know, Paulie went to Restaurant Depot twice a week. He went to the local produce market and shopped Tuesdays and Fridays. He would shop most of the day and then drive everything into Brooklyn. I mean, when I look back on it, like we really did a lot. But again, nothing comes without hard work. You know, people can walk into our restaurant and look at it and it's beautiful and we have a great design. We're very fortunate with the brothers that we met that designed our place. They just had a great vision and they were amazing. But the bottom line is, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just what you see on the outside. There's so many pieces to it that have to keep going. And I wouldn't say it's for everybody. I definitely would not say that. It is not for everybody. You would have to be something that you really, really want. And you have to be willing to take some risks. And, you know, I guess we did take a lot of risks when I look back on it.
Yeah. I know Polly, you know, really wanted it too. What were your intentions? Like, what was your want? Did you just want your husband to be happy? Did you want a business yourself? Did you envision yourself working here? What were your thoughts?
Well, no, I didn't envision that at all because I didn't have a real major role in the beginning because I was also working a full-time job. So if he would ask me for something, I could at least say at that point, you know, I'm working tomorrow, so I can't do X, Y, Z. But now, since I'm sort of, I guess, semi-retired, I quit my real job like just 4 years ago when we were ready to open the slice shop. We were waiting for the slice shop to open almost 3 years. And I was
the New York one?
Yes. And I was, you know, waiting to quit my full-time job. And so it was, you know, it was tough. I mean, it was tough. I mean, but I knew that, you know, we were doing well and it was just a matter of time before I was going to be able to do that. And, you know, I just had to hang in there. And sometimes you just have to have patience. You know, you can't have everything like that minute. You know, I was thinking long term. I wasn't thinking short term. And so I knew once the slice shop opened, that we would be in a better place and then I could quit my job. I kind of knew, I didn't know how well we would do, but I knew that if we did okay, then I could be involved with more charitable works. And that was really my mission for going into it. Because once I didn't have my full-time job, then I could attend to more of the things that I love to do. And the bottom line is, though, then the pandemic happened, you know? And so that really pulled me almost full-time into the business, I would say, because I had to really pick up a lot because we closed at 60 Greenpoint 2 times and reopened 2 times. And we were closed about 6 months out of the year in 2020. And it was challenging. I mean, I thought that, you know, it was hard enough to open a business and operate a business. And then to be in New York City during this time and then try to bring our business back. You know, I mean, we had doubts, I'm sure. Everybody did. It was challenging. I mean, I really learned that year what I was made of. You know, and
tell me more.
And I feel like I thought I knew that before, but I really learned that then. But the main thing I just kept saying to my husband was, we're okay. You know, as long as we're not sick and we're healthy, you know, we'll figure it out. And I don't know how many times I said that year, but that got me through. We'll figure it out.
I think
we'll be okay.
I think we omitted talking about the pandemic in the podcast I did with Polly, but maybe give us a little bit more insight as to what was happening during that time, because I remember Polly talking about it in a different show, but maybe you can enlighten me and remind me.
Well, I mean, the bottom line was obviously, New York City was sort of an epicenter. It was really very bad here, and everything was shut down. All restaurants were shut down. I mean, we weren't even allowed to have outdoor dining here until July. So that was March to July. We were completely closed. Luckily, we had a slice shop in operation, and that really saved us because we closed everything indoor there, and we had takeout and delivery. We opened up a window just for takeout, which we didn't have before. So we pivoted, as we say, and that was a word Paulie and I couldn't stand anymore. But really, that business saved us because, I look back on the last few years and I say, I'm not sure if we didn't have that, if we would still be in business.
Wow.
I'm
that
really,
close?
I'm really not sure, because if you shut down totally and, you have nothing to offer, what are you going to do? I mean, yeah, we did get some PPP money, but that was much later on. I mean, that wasn't something that happened right away. That was something you had to apply for. It was a real process. And that also helped in the long run. But it was challenging. It was just very challenging. And so what I tried to do that there was so much uncertainty and we were home a lot was to just build myself up physically and mentally. Now, I use that time to do that. I know a lot of other people use the time to eat and drink like crazy. But I mean, Paulie also cooked a lot, which was great. We hadn't had that many meals together in a number of years. So there was some wonderful things from it. But the bottom line is I used that time to just try to build myself up in every way that I could, because I knew that I had to mentally be prepared, because if I was going to fall apart and lose it, he wasn't going to make it.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? When you're in a relationship, it's, if you're both down in the bottom, you're not going to make it. There's usually one or the other that's pulling the other person up. And if you're in a strong relationship, those moments.
Yeah.
And like I said, we had been together a very long time. So I had to, I couldn't get hysterical. I mean, there were days I really wanted to be hysterical, but I just couldn't. I mean, in private, I could do whatever I wanted, but I didn't need to let other people know that. And it was rough. I mean, it was very rough on me. And, to put everything in your life like that we did for 10 years, we put everything into it. And then to just turn around and it's completely shut down. And even just to walk in there and there was nothing going on. I mean, it was very hard for him. I know it was very hard for him. It was very hard for me also. And then just not to be seeing the people, like everybody dispersed. We were told like on that Monday, you have to close at 8:00. We thought we were going to be allowed to be open that night. So employees didn't even get to say goodbye to each other. It was just really, I had to go in the next day and throw food out. I didn't have anybody that could go in there. I had to do that. So it was challenging. But, every day I got up, I did yoga or I did exercise. I'm very spiritual. I read readings every morning. I mean, I have like a routine for myself. But I really ramped it up like during the pandemic. I just had to, because we couldn't lose what we had worked so hard for. I mean, I had a few people really sort of insinuate to me like, why don't you just like pack it in now? And it was tempting. I tell you, it was tempting at the time. And of course, when I said something to my husband, he said, well, I'm going down with the ship. So I said, well, I guess I'm going down with you. I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, we've been together. I knew he wasn't going to, not try. But after the second time of reopening, because we closed twice and had to rehire twice, it was a rough time because it was the winter and people weren't still coming inside. You know, people were very afraid, even though we were doing all the protocols the city asked us to do. We always did everything. We had plexiglass and we just did everything. I mean, there were nights that we would be open and we weren't even making enough money for salary that night, you know, but it was okay, you know, because I just said, we can't close again. I said to him, we can't, because I can't do it again. I was finally at that point. I said, I just don't think I have it in me. I can't go through this again. And so whatever it was, we stayed open those months, even though we weren't getting a lot of people. And it was very slow and it was very quiet, to just stay open, to be a presence. And I feel like people also in the community were looking to us in a sense. Like, I felt like if we didn't do it, who was going to do it? I mean, because everybody that knows us knows that we're really like headstrong and we have a lot of perseverance. So, you know, I'm glad that we did. And during that time, what also kept me going was the fact that we did do a lot for the healthcare workers in New York. We did do a lot. I'm very proud of that. And that really got me out of bed every day because I had people calling me, how can we help? You know, because they would buy the pizzas from us and we would send it to a hospital. Sometimes we just gave it on our own anyway. If somebody requested it, we didn't have a sponsor. I was always in awe of people that called me, friends of mine, their kids called me and said, how can we help you? I mean, other people you didn't hear a word from, but I was always, you know, in awe of that they thought of somebody else besides themselves at that point. How can we help? Can we do anything for the healthcare workers? I mean, we even had a man, a nurse who drove up from Georgia, and he ended up staying in our apartment that was vacant at the time. So in the middle of the night, he was an intensive care nurse to help out in New York. So I was just so in awe of the healthcare people and what they do and how underappreciated they are, because it is really rough. And so we did do a lot of that. And I really felt good about that. And that really kept me going. I mean, I had like a purpose, like to get up every day and to help somebody else and to get out of my own head and my own pity party. Because that's what I say to people. You have to get out of your own head. You have to get out of your own head. It's critical, you know, because if you stay there too long, it's not a good place, you know. But if you're helping somebody else and you feel like somebody's benefiting maybe from the pain that you're going through, like I felt like in the end, it was probably all worth it. It was okay. That's just the way I think.
That was probably one of the best stories I've heard all year.
Oh,
thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to share.
Hey, Pizza Pal. I just want to say thank you for listening to the show so far, and thank you for making it all the way here. Before we get on to the end of the show, I want to remind you all to please leave a rating on the podcast. You could do it right now. Just go ahead and click 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or Apple. It will greatly help the show. I appreciate you so much. And if you're looking to buy an uni or a second uni, the affiliate link helps the show so much. So please use that anytime you're considering a new oven. All right, enjoy the rest of the show. Where are you putting your attention today?
Today, well, I'm going to the gym this afternoon, and then I'll be at the restaurant for a while. I have some employee things to do, and, you know, I check on the place, and I don't really have like a specific role there. I don't host. I'm not in the kitchen. I sort of oversee things, make sure everything's running okay. As my mother-in-law used to say, rest her soul, I should have been an efficiency expert. She always said that to me. Because I like things to run smoothly, and I'm always looking at processes and, you know, whatever, making suggestions. And I do a lot of that. I mean, recently I'm helping a lot with my son in Philly because he opened the shop there. So I've been trying to get down there a couple of times a month just to see how things are going and all. So like I have plenty to do. I mean, it's not, and then I also have 2 grandchildren now, so I help babysit them. So I keep very busy. So what I'm saying to you is I don't really have a lot of time for all those other things, but I feel like it's important to fill up your time with things that matter and that things are important. I'm not saying don't, watch TV, but I'm just saying, you can spend your time. There's so many people out there that need help in so many different ways. And I feel like we probably do about 10% humans in general of what we're really capable of. I don't think we really know what we're capable of sometimes. And it doesn't have to be anything grandiose. I mean, I don't feel like I do anything great. I mean, I'm just being me, and I'm just trying to, pay things forward. And I just never forget. And I think that's important too. Never forget where you came from and how you started. I never forget that. We've had, a lot of accomplishments and write-ups and presses, and that's all great. That's fine. But we don't really get very involved with that. It's like everything in life is fleeting. Like everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. It's what comes after that 15 minutes that's important. Everybody's striving for that today, wants to be an Instagram star and a TikTok this and all that. But what happens after that? What are you doing with that? Where is that going? I mean, that's what the message should be.
Beautiful. Is there one mistake in pizza, business, or life that people should avoid? And if it's just what you said, we can leave it at that.
I don't know. In business, I think the main thing is, and I've had people talk to me about, introducing this, that, and the other thing. And I always say, just start with something small. Like you can't do everything immediately. I forget, I just had this conversation with somebody, I don't know who it was, and they had all these ideas about whatever. And I said, well, just start with one thing and then, build on that. And I feel like that's how we kind of started also. We didn't come out of the gate saying, we were going to do like everything like phenomenal or whatever, but we started kind of slowly. We didn't have as many pies on the menu in the beginning. We didn't have a full bar in the beginning. Like all these different things. You can add things on. You don't want to take them away after you start them. So the idea is to start slowly, but keep moving progressively forward.
Love it. Marianne, this is G. You have been very gracious with your time.
You're sweet.
And your life knowledge. Thank you for sharing all of it.
No problem.
I want to ask you this final question.
Uh-oh.
The hardest one.
Uh-oh.
What do you want to leave the audience with today?
Well, what I would like to say is I think that we can all just do more. I don't think we realize what we're really capable of. And I think that you shouldn't limit yourself. And I say this to people all the time. Limit yourself by what you think you know or you've studied. Because you can learn it and you can do it, if you have the passion for it. I think sometimes we limit ourselves by what we think we already have accomplished or what we went to school for or what we know. But there's always a way to get something done if you really, the bottom line is you really have to want to do it. That's the key. Because some people will say things, but you really have to want to do it. And you have to have, if you have a partner like we were talking about, I think what's important is to have the buy-in of that person. Because they have to be willing to walk the journey with you. But if you care enough about that other person, you want that, if they're fulfilled, then you will be fulfilled in whatever you plan to do. And that's the way I've seen it work with us. I've just seen that like as a couple. I mean, I have a lot of life experience. People ask me that all the time. How you've been married so long? I mean, we've been together 46 years. We're married 43 years. But we've never really tried to dictate to each other, what we can and can't do. We just always encouraged each other to pursue things that would make us happy or fulfilled. I don't know how I got into relationship advice.
Well, I think you've been dropping dimes left and right throughout this conversation, but that really just put the cherry on top. This podcast is probably going to be called Keys to a Beautiful Life, Pizza, and Marriage as told by Marianne G.
Oh, that's very sweet. Will this be coming out soon or you don't know?
Probably give me a couple of months. I have a few,
Oh, okay. No problem.
a good amount of episodes, but I can't wait to release it and share it out into the world.
All right. Great to see you.
Great to see you. And thank you very much for being on the show.
Have a wonderful day.